Hi there, everyone. Welcome along to our webinar all about crushing your fear of posting on LinkedIn. My name is Matt, and I've been joined again by Bob off the back of a brilliant webinar that we did around 6 weeks ago that was all around getting hired in 2025. Today, we're going to be talking about all the things that you should and shouldn't be doing when it comes to posting on LinkedIn. And if you have that innate fear of just getting your content out there, how you can overcome that and a few little tactics and strategies to do that, along with some best practices and a Q&A at the end. Bob, super excited to be here again.
Hello, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to be doing this. The last one was so successful. Had a lot of good comments off the back of it. So yeah, I'm excited to be talking about crushing your LinkedIn fear this time around.
Yeah, let's hope that we can do the same after this and have people leaving feeling all riled up and ready to go and with almost maybe even with a content plan in their head. So I am going to share the presentation deck and hopefully avoid the tech nightmare that we had last time. So just get this up. Okay, so we've already introduced ourselves and you don't need to be looking at a couple of slightly dodgy selfies. So in terms of an agenda then, what's there to be afraid of? Overcoming FUDs, which stands for fears, uncertainties, and doubts. We're going to talk about how to ideate great content and where you get some of those ideas from. Why video really works, and no, it's not to do with algorithm boosting. The current state of the algorithm, speaking of which, and then a Q&A at the end. We've already had a few different questions submitted, so we will try and get to everybody. If you have a question, please do ask it as we go along. Pop it into the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll try and round it all up at the end. But before we get to that, we're going to have a little bit of a market update. And Bob, we talked about this the other day. How are you seeing things at the moment from a recruitment background?
It's improving. So if we just cycle back a little bit, we had COVID. Post-COVID, things started to improve pretty rapidly. 2022 was a fantastic year in recruitment. People were falling over themselves trying to hire people. Every company was hiring. There weren't enough people around for the vacancies. Things then took a turn. 2023 was everyone thought a recession was coming, cost of living was going up, interest rates were going through the roof, and companies got a little bit worried, and everything scaled right the way back. And we saw some big tech firms making redundancies. But since then, since 2023, 24, we've started to see a bit of an increase per man contracts, which is really good. The last 3 to 6 months have been really promising. In fact, since Christmas, it's been really, really busy. So people are saying 2025 is going to be a good year. We're certainly seeing that.
Amazing. And I generally agree with that, right? And I think that from what I've heard from other contractors, especially in the contracting side of things are picking up. It's not all doom and gloom. Don't forget, people will take to LinkedIn very quickly to post about negative experiences, but will not necessarily go and post about positive ones. And we're going to talk about that in a little minute. Interestingly, I did put a poll out which got 109 votes. And notionally, people, I would say, are finding it the same or better. If you add up same, better, and much better, they add up to more than worse and finding it harder. So I would say that tracks pretty much with everything that you said. My own take is that when this national insurance price hike comes in, things are going to be a little bit bumpy for a little while whilst people adjust to their new balance sheets. However, I do think that's going to drive a number of outside IR35 hires. I was talking to someone earlier, a very senior leader in technology, who was saying that one of their public services clients is going to have to find a 20 million cost saving just to deal with the NI cost rises, which is just absolutely crazy. But they're looking at AI and data enhancements to fund that, not cutting people, I should add. And that was the context of that conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see it affecting less people in our professional market at the mid to senior level. Because if you're earning 70, 80 grand a year, then there's not going to be companies have already got a deep pocket to pay that sort of money, and there's not going to be that much of an effect compared to someone who's working in retail on minimum wage, where all of a sudden the company's going to have to dig deep because it's a big increase from where they were.
No, 100%. And you're absolutely right. All of that sector is going to be a lot harder hit, I think. So that's just a quick roundup on the market and where we stand at the moment. Before we get into the fears, uncertainties, and doubts, I just want to share my story about LinkedIn and get Bob to share his, because it's not been an easy journey, really. I only started, say only, I started posting on LinkedIn about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and probably only started doing video about, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, 2.5, and I had a bit of a break in the middle. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. You have to be really, really vulnerable. And I had a lot of fear around what people thought about what I had to say. Would they like the tone of my voice? Would they find me attractive? Even like some of these things all played on my mind as I was trying to think about why I should be posting and what was holding me back. And if you look at some of my metrics from the early days, you can see there's a post here that I made that didn't even get a single like or a comment down in the middle, which sometimes can be a bit difficult to swallow. But every time I stepped in front of that camera, I got a bit braver. And every time I learned something new, whether it was an angle or lighting or like something in post production, trimming videos, like subtitling stuff. And eventually, like with anything, you do it over and over and over and iterate again and again and again. And it just becomes second nature to the point where some of my more recent videos and more recent content has, generally speaking, received a much better response. Like this one on the right hand side, I would say is like borderline viral. And every single one got engagement. And most of all, you can see what the biggest difference is: the number of comments that were left on each. Like way, way, way more actual engagement and discussion and debate was generated with those posts. But it's not an easy road to get there, is what I'm saying. And you have to try and get out of your own way. And the more often you put yourself in that slightly uncomfortable, slightly vulnerable situation, the easier and easier it will get. And I guess the point that I'm making to anybody is I've seen humongous results off of the back of my LinkedIn posts, right? Like I couldn't be a freelancer without it. And I just had to get out of my own way and just start doing it. So that would be my message to anybody on this call: is the biggest thing to take away from me personally is to just start. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be there. So
your content, I don't know about your content, but your confidence probably grew along the way as well, which probably helps a great deal. And also those videos became a bit shorter, I noticed. Maybe that helped.
Yes.
Helped
Yeah,
somewhat.
like when I came to it, Bob, I literally knew nothing. I just knew that, I'd watched a bit of Gary Vee, I'd watched a few influencers on YouTube, and everyone was saying, hey, Matt, video's the way to go. Do this, do that, do that. Yeah, video's great. Let's do video. How do I do video? And I kind of just, rather than sit there and get analysis paralysis about stuff, I try and just get on and do things and figure it out. I learn by doing and build it, break it, iterate constantly. But that's enough about my story, Bob. How about yours? What was your journey like?
I never really realized the journey I was on as I was doing it. So I joined LinkedIn a long, long time ago, 2008 or something like that. And for a long time, it was just a shell, a ghost profile. I stalked a lot of people, sent out the typical recruitment messages, connected with people, send a message, hi, do you want a job? You probably all still get them, but it's evolved so much in that time for me. And yeah, I still message people. I've got clients asking me to find people, but now it's more about my brand, and making sure that I become a thought leader and offer so much advice in my posts. And for me, that all changed about 2018-ish, 2019-ish. I actually started posting about that time. Initially, it was just text posts that were going out. Then I started including some pictures with it. But then I changed the angle of what I was posting about. And it wasn't just, hi, I've got a job. Are you interested? Contact me. It was about giving back information. It was about talking about problems and relating to people, which made a big, big difference. And then I transitioned into the video side, which was only in the last 18 months or so. Again, like you, so uncomfortable, so out of my comfort zone. And it was, I just did it. And the first one was rubbish. So I did it again. I kept doing it and it became more natural. But what I realized is that I'm not doing anything different. I talk about what I write in my posts.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing now is just saying it out loud, putting a face to a name and a voice to the text, I guess. And
And
now I'm appearing on webinars and podcasts. Who would have thought, years ago, looking forwards, that I'd be doing that.
which is amazing growth, right? And that's there's a few things to unpack from that. Okay. Firstly, it's that same thing. Just even if you're worried or uncertain, there's never a better time to start than today. Like, the best thing you can do after this webinar is to leave it and then post about it. I attended this webinar about posting on LinkedIn today. I've had some fear around it, but I'm going to give it my best. Like, don't post that, but just, ask ChatGPT to help you wordsmith it a bit. That's the best thing you can do, is start building your brand today. The other is, what is your brand aiming to achieve? I noticed something flash up in the chat about Jan being a contractor without selling packaged services and such. What I think you're trying to achieve with personal branding on LinkedIn is you're trying to be, as you said, Bob, a thought leader and someone who in your field is renowned for fixing a particular problem. So I'm the Microsoft 365 person, right? And people come to me with Microsoft 365 opportunities, questions, etc., on a fairly frequent basis. And I think if you set out a goal in mind, i.e., what is it you want to achieve, what kind of a brand do you want to have, and what problem do you want to solve, you'll have a much easier time making content and writing content around that.
Yep. And like you say, then opportunities come to you as well. If there's people here looking for work, I hear so many success stories of people finding their own jobs through their own network. I mean, of course, apply for jobs, talk to recruiters. That's just another angle, but use your own network and utilize it as much as you can by leaning on your brand.
You're about to webinar yourself out of a business, Bob.
No, hopefully I'm be getting more business because I'm offering such good advice to problems that people have.
That's true too. So I think there's another key takeaway to come away with there, and it's just to start having an idea of what it is that you want to achieve out the back end of it, and also just being present and being front and center for when people are ready to take on the new employee that's in your arena or undertake a Microsoft 365 project. If you're a contractor, just make sure you're present, and by producing content on a regular basis, you will just naturally come to the front of their thoughts at the appropriate time.
My biggest bit of advice to anyone is don't talk about yourself, talk to your audience and talk about their problems relating to the experience you have. So I work in recruitment. I talk to potential clients and candidates about problems with the recruitment process or how you can improve your job search. I don't have to say, hey, come talk to me about hiring an X person, because all of my free content and advice is doing that. And if you're a contractor looking for work, that will happen to you by talking about M365 implementations or whatever it might be.
You summarized that so much better than I did. Thank you. So moving on, what's there to be afraid of when 90% of people aren't engaging? And Bob, you used to fit into this category, didn't you? You were one of the lurkers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was. I didn't know any different back then. But then I just decided, actually, I do need to be posting. I do need to add some pictures. I do need to add some video. It's always the fear of, oh, crap, how do I do this? And what do I do? And how am I going to come across? And also then, when I was doing video, I tend not to look back at my videos. Once it's done, I probably should, because I should probably analyze it, go, right, what could I tweak here? But our marketing lady is fantastic, and she says, no, that's really good. And I go, great, I don't have to rewatch it and tear it apart. If you say it's good, let's go with that.
I unfortunately don't have a marketing lady. I have a chief marketing officer. His name is Matt. And I have to go and review all of my video content and do the post-production stuff myself. So I have no choice but to look at that. And there's a table here that I've flashed up with a few things, and that one fits very much into the fear of perfection, worrying that whatever it is you have produced is not good enough, or is never finished. So these are a few of the other fears. You've got the fear of engagement, usually the lack of engagement. You've got the fear of vulnerability, the fear of experience, and the fear of judgment. And then underneath each of these rows, we've got some columns with some items on how you can potentially look to combat some of these fears. And there's one that is bolded, and I've bolded it deliberately because I alluded to it at the very start of this section. And that is the 99-1 rule, which applies to all social platforms, but also applies to LinkedIn. And that's 90% of people typically just lurk on the platform. They will just be consuming content. You won't even know that they're consuming it. And on the occasions that people have bought things from me, services or products, off of the back of a video that I've put out, those people have never once liked, commented, or even reposted any of my content. Just think about that. I don't even know they're there.
It's true. I had someone this week say exactly the same thing. They've got a new client coming on board, and it's through all the content they put out, but they don't engage or like or comment, but they see it. Or a client might look back and think, what have you been posting about, and see all this market insight stuff you've been posting, and think, wow, he clearly, or she clearly knows his or her stuff. And it's true. A lot of people just watch and don't engage, but they come to you when they need you.
I do a bit of club level motorsport, right, Bob? And I was walking around the paddock one day, and there was a chap that came over and found me next to my race car where I was set up, and he came and saw me and said, "Oh, hey Matt, you do Microsoft 365 stuff, right?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've got my car logoed up and stuff." So yeah, I do. How did you know that? Oh well, someone else from your club forwarded on your LinkedIn profile. I've been seeing your content. Can you come and work with me? I've got this cyber essentials audit to do, and they need to do a load of remediation work. The guy never interacted with me otherwise. He'd been following me on LinkedIn, hadn't even connected, followed me on LinkedIn, waited to see if the stuff I was putting out was any good, and then jumped on the opportunity after that. So people are there and they're consuming stuff. And this is another, just a general tip, is bear in mind any comments that you make on any posts can and will wash up everywhere. Like absolutely everywhere. So make sure that they're good, they're insightful, and they're valuable.
And also you want to, exactly. You want to add value. If you're going to start adding negativity in, it's not really engaging in the right way. You want people, you want to be asking probing questions, start those two-way conversations, take those conversations offline into DMs or whatever it might be, and work on it that way. But if you're just throwing negativity around, everyone's entitled to different opinions. Of course they are.
Absolutely.
But you can do it in a much better way than negativity.
Negativity is also a very quick way to get yourself reported by someone who just doesn't like what you said because it was negative, and then get yourself shadow banned. So don't do that. Anyway, let's unpack some of these FUDs. So fear of judgment. What do we mean by that? We mean a fear of people looking at our content, scrutinizing it, picking it apart and going, no, that's rubbish. So how can you combat that? You can combat that by taking very small steps, which is a bit like you said, Bob, one comfortable post at a time. So something that is personal to you, perhaps, because if it's your personal story, nobody else can tell you it's wrong. It can't be wrong because it's to do with you. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bob said and mentioned making your post about other people. You can still tell a story while making it valuable to someone else. Teach a lesson based on your experiences. Anything to add there, Bob?
No, don't think so. I think you summarised that pretty well.
Okay, cool. One thing that can help and has helped me is fact checking your posts in artificial intelligence. So if you go to ChatGPT and you write in your LinkedIn post, don't ask it to change it or rewrite it, and just say, hey, ChatGPT, I need you to just check the facts in this post that I've written for LinkedIn. Here's the post, put the post underneath, and then at the bottom, put fact check this for me. It will then go out and source it and cite it for you. You can even include those sources and citations if you want to at the bottom of your post. And any of your good friends will also very likely support your content creation and may even do things like invite you to their own podcasts, webinars, offer to do video with you, maybe even be the camera person for you. So just think about how you can lean on your in-person network as well as your online one to help you with that. Are there any of these particular columns that you want to unpack, Bob, or shall I just carry on going?
Just carry on, but someone's made a really good point. They use Grammarly for their post as well. I've got Grammarly installed as an add-on tool.
Oh, nice.
And it's brilliant. And it just you have to set the language so it knows you know what language to work in, American or English. But Grammarly is fantastic.
I've never used I've never used it. I need to check that out. That sounds really good. Really, really good. A fear of experience. So Leandro actually sent a question in when he registered for the webinar about this. And if you aren't an expert or you don't perceive yourself to be one, there are a few ways that you can still post content. You can ask questions in a curious manner, and you can invite people to present their views to you. So, for example, if you're learning a new topic, you can say, hey, I've been learning this topic and studying this, but I have these questions. How best can you answer them? Or here's my understanding of a topic. What am I missing? These are things that you might think to put into ChatGPT if you were doing it from a position of expertise or a thought leader, but you can just put those questions out onto LinkedIn. People love being asked questions. Think about it. How often does someone come to you with a question and ask and invite your opinion and you go, no, never? People go, oh, thank you.
People love to help, don't they?
Right, absolutely. People love helping. I mean, you love helping, Bob. I know you do.
It's who I am.
Yeah, exactly. And it's who most of us are as humans, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a great idea about asking for help. But even if you've got a basic knowledge of something, post about it, and build upon it. Yeah, it's quite often one that people worry about, but the biggest barrier is just to start posting, and then you'll move on from there.
100%, Bob. 100%. So fear of vulnerability, imposter syndrome is a real thing for a lot of people. It's a real thing for me sometimes. Just remember, every time you go to post, that you are good enough and you absolutely deserve to be where you are, because everything you have done up until now has led up to that. There's a whole load, like you could do a whole presentation on that alone. So I'm not going to go any further than that, but just remember to remind yourself that you absolutely are good enough. And again, posting personal stories and things that are more personal to you is what builds relationships with people on LinkedIn. People love behind the scenes content. I play badminton to keep fit and occasionally like to look at, techniques and drills and things I can do to improve. And I got into watching this channel on YouTube, and it's a couple who have played badminton together their whole lives and play for England. And after about 10 videos, I noticed they had some vlogs and things about them going and playing tournaments internationally. I stopped watching all of the how-tos and tutorials and got super absorbed into their vlogs, and then subscribed and turned notifications on. And every single time a tutorial comes up, I go, I might watch that. But every time they talk about, here's our traveling trip to Malaysia for this Super 1000 tour, or here's, our preparation for the Onyx All England, I go and watch it because I like them. I really like them. And I enjoy hearing about what they do because it interests me. People will buy into that 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I promise you they will buy into that.
Yep, agreed. And that's why I think personal posts are good on LinkedIn. It's not Facebook, and it shouldn't be. It should definitely be professional related posts on there, but you're building your brand through 15 to 20% of personal posts and people understanding who you are.
Absolutely, Bob. Absolutely. So fear of engagement, we've kind of, a lot of these kind of lean on each other and lean into each other. So we've kind of covered a lot of the table here already, but just a reminder that engagement is very much just a vanity metric, and that you shouldn't be fearful of people not engaging with your posts for the reason we highlighted just a few minutes ago. People who are there and are watching and consuming don't always engage. In fact, 90% won't. Okay. So don't worry about it. Yes, of course, engagement helps. It helps you with the algorithm. It helps get your message out there. But in terms of feeling whether that post achieved anything, do not use engagement. It's just a vanity metric and it's just there to make you feel better. So, you post a video, it gets crickets just like mine did. No comments, no likes. Don't worry about it. It happens and it's going to happen. It's a bit like a comedian, right? When you go to a comedy club or you go and see your favorite comedian even and pay for a ticket. Not every single joke is going to land with you, but it will land with some other people. And some of them are going to be belly laughs and others are just going to be internal smiles because that story resonated. I think that's a really, really good analogy because it's exactly the same. Sometimes you're going to get this amazing raft of engagement and other times you're just going to get people internally smiling going, oh, I noted that. That was really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, and there is a way to help your engagement as well. If you're commenting, liking, engaging on other people who are your target audience, your posts then start to show up in their feeds more often, as do their posts in your feeds as well. So it's not just about posting; it's about how you engage with people.
Absolutely, Bob. You're 100% right. Okay, I'm conscious of time and we're halfway through. So let's move on from the common FUDs and look at how to ideate great content using what you already know. So, Bob, I think you were going to take the lead on this slide.
Yeah, so content is everywhere, and that might be easy for me to say because I post all the time, and a lot of people here are here for a reason of, how do I start doing this? And you might be thinking, oh, I don't know what to write about, but content is everywhere. You just need to know where to look for it. So it could be in your working day, part of your day-to-day job. So anything that you do, any common problems that you come against, you could think, how can I talk about this? This is a problem for me or a problem for my customer. How can I this must be a problem for other people, so I can talk about this. So any challenges, any situations that come up, any conversations that you hear people having, whether that's in your job, it could be networking events that you're going to, it could be that you're posting on LinkedIn and people are commenting, and you think that's a really good comment. That could be a great way to share a new post, and you can repurpose a lot of comments or DMs into your own content, into your own posts. I think you can repost, as long as you rewrite it, other people's posts as well. So if you see something great on LinkedIn, you think, wow, that's amazing. What they've just told is really great. I'm going to redo that and I'm going to do it in my own way. I don't do it immediately because that just looks a little bit strange sometimes. I perhaps just wait a little while and set a reminder. Chasing. And then sit there and go, right, that's a good post. Let's put my own thoughts in it or my own spin on it and rehash that one. And even if it's very similar, no one's going to remember a post that someone's done, a couple of months ago. But for me, it's all about the storytelling side of posts. When you're writing it, tell a story, because that's how people buy into it. A big one is ChatGPT. So on the next slide, I'm going to give you an example script so you can feed into ChatGPT to try and help you generate some ideas. But it's so true because you've got AI here. Use it. Let it help you. Let it write for you in a way. Give it a base level if you need it to, because perhaps you might not be that way inclined of writing some content. But don't let it write something and then just post it, because it should be you. It should be your brand that's coming from.
It needs to be in your tone of voice and it needs to be your ideas. So whenever I talk to clients about using artificial intelligence for this or document creation or anything else, one of the things that I refer to is a top-down or a bottom-up approach. So a top-down approach is doing something along the lines of, hey, ChatGPT, I'm a X posting about Y. Give me some points that I need to include about the topic, which will help make it relevant, understandable, boost engagement, whatever your desired outcome is, or write me a framework for this X content, document, whatever. That's a top-down approach where you're asking ChatGPT to give you ideas. A bottom-up approach would be to write the entire post yourself and then put into ChatGPT something along the lines of, "Hey, ChatGPT, I am a X posting about Y. This is the post that I have written for my audience, full of Z type people. Please critique it and suggest any improvements." Is another. I know yours, however, Bob, blows my 3 prompts out of the water, but that's just the whole top down approach and bottom up approach that you can use. But again, you'll notice at no point have I said ChatGPT, write this for me, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I was going to, just before you move on to that script, I like the idea it's written here as well, is to keep a diary, keep a content ideas list. Quite often, several times a day, I think that's great. I'll write about that at some point. I write it down and then I come back to it. And I've got a whole list, literally dozens and dozens and dozens of ideas that I can just dip into and go, right, that's a good idea. Let's write about this and build a post out about that. Or from usually everyday conversations that I'm having.
Perfect. So let's move on to the ChatGPT script. And this is a beast, Bob. There's everything that you need here.
Yeah, I won't read it out. I think we'll be showing the slides afterwards.
Correct.
So you can take this. But essentially, I'm feeding it. If you just say, give me ideas, it's going to give you ideas that probably aren't relevant. If you give it the background and a story about who you are, what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, who you're talking to, it's going to learn and give you much more relevant information. So in this example, I said who I am. I work in recruitment. I'm looking to build my brand identity. I want to create more content. This is who I'm connected to. And I want to base some of my content around pain points for hiring managers and candidates, so on and so forth. And then I've also fed it some of my previous posts that I've written as well, because I want it to learn some of the things that I'm talking about. And also, if you want it to start writing a base example post for you, you could ask it to learn your writing style and your tone of voice. So what it's giving you should be a really good base product to work from and build upon before you go out and post it out. So yeah, it's about feeding it the right information.
Absolutely.
If you're not giving it much, I think it's an assistant, isn't it? If you had an assistant working for you and you just asked it to do so, it'll go off and do it, but it might not be right. The more you give it, the more you get back.
Context is absolutely everything with any AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or Sonnet or Grok or whatever it is that you're using. Context is absolutely vital, and the more you feed it, the better and better the output gets. 100%. So why video really works, and it's not to do with algorithm boosting. Okay. Now, like I said, I mentioned that I started doing video a couple of years ago, and video is not the only thing that I post, but however, it is something that I post reasonably frequently. The reason that video works is because it builds rapport. Okay. Imagine if I was just frozen in one position talking to you and my mouth wasn't, if I sit below my microphone, my mouth's not really moving, you're not getting any idea of my mannerisms or who I am or what I look like or kind of my, all of these things come across in video that just can't come across in a text post or an image post. So what I've done on this slide is I've just invited you to look at 3 different posts that I've made. One was a text post. One was an image post with a client testimonial with a bit of text on it. So not the best example of an image, but just one that I had to hand. And the other is a video. And if I just start playing it now.
I can't hear that, Matt. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I can, but I realize that not everyone may be able to. The sound doesn't really matter. The point, what a frame I've paused that on. Wow. I'm going to have to undo that. My point is that there's intonation in my voice, my facial expressions, my mannerisms. This is all how I would be in front of a customer. yes, okay. I mean, this is the intro, so I'm going to be being super enthusiastic with all of that stuff, and maybe like, plus 20% over on top of what I'd be like in the boardroom. But it gives people an idea of what it would be like to work with me. It's building rapport with my potential customers or hiring managers or whoever, my network, without even being present in the room. And that is why video is so powerful. It's nothing to do with the number of impressions or the number of engagements or anything like that. It is to do with that building of a rapport that traditionally, even 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, before the pandemic kind of happened and we weren't really using video as much as we should have been, it would have taken several meetings to build that up with a customer, or at least, several engagements to get a meeting, to get in front of them, to then build that rapport. I don't know if you remember, Bob, back like 10, 15 years ago, the primary aim for anybody, get a meeting with a client, get in the room with them, get in the room. That was certainly for us in tech consultancy. You've got to get in front of them. You've got to build a relationship. Well, guess what? You can do that. It's one way and it's not
Mm.
two-way. But if you understand your audience, you understand their pain points, and you can help solve them, it will feel two-way, because they'll go, oh, I've got that problem and this is the solution. Oh my God, Matt's a mind reader. I'm not. I just understand the products that I'm selling and the services that I'm creating and the pain points that they solve, which isn't the easiest thing in the world to do. It takes time and effort. And that's some of the stuff that we cover in the Launchpad in quite a lot of detail and spend a lot of time on. But once you've got that, video makes it just so much easier to build those relationships without having to even be present with the customer or the hiring manager or the person that you're trying to network your way into a job with. They feel like you are speaking to them when you do it. So with
I
that
think
in
you're
mind,
absolutely right. But also, I think that video is easier to digest. This is why platforms like
so true.
TikTok have done so well, because it's just easy to scroll, watch a bit of information, digest a bit of information, then move on, as opposed to going, right, there's a really long post here, I'm gonna have to read all of it, or just read the first section. Am I going to be interested in this? I'm not sure. Video is just coming at you, and you don't have to do too much to take it all in.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that in mind, can we just get by way of reaction, a thumbs up if you thought that video was best and most engaging on that slide deck in that presentation? See if anyone, and is anyone still there? Yeah. Did anyone find the text post more engaging? I think we were still on video when I said that. Did anyone find the image post more engaging?
Thing
See,
is, I think there's a
this
place for
is
all three,
there.
and a bit of variety. But video is definitely has a really strong place.
Yeah, 100% right. I'm not saying lean on video 100% of the time. It's all about variety and it's all about different content. If you do too much of one particular post type, LinkedIn will punish you. And that is why I wanted to include this slide, and it quite neatly brings us into the state of the algorithm, and how to game it a little bit to help you get a leg up. So, interestingly, Stephen put in the chat, I see video is being heavily promoted by the LinkedIn algorithm. You're kind of right, Stephen, but also kind of not. Richard Vanderblom, who's a very renowned LinkedIn researcher who has a team of people that research the algorithm, actually found that their massive engagement boost has been dropped for video now. So video is no longer being prioritized as heavily over the other media types. It is still being slightly buffed, but it's no longer like the 3 to 4 times buff that we were seeing before.
Isn't it crazy? The algorithm keeps us on our toes and keeps changing over time.
Always,
Stephen
Bob.
also went on to say, does using video as an intro to a long form text post work? I actually find the other way around. I think put a text post out with lots of information and then repurpose that into lots of little videos. And then you've got content ideas then for a few weeks. I done one a week or so back about top hiring tips for this year, and 6 or 7 points on there, and each one is going to be re-released as a text post, and then each one's going to be re-released as a video as well.
And And that goes back to what we talked about on our last webinar about pillar content, doesn't it, Bob? So having one really, really big key piece of content that you've spent a long time creating, which you can then break down and chunk up into smaller pieces over time to give you a more rounded and fuller content plan if you're struggling for, an amount of content. Long form text posts appear to be back on trend. This is something that I have just notionally realized in my own research. I have noticed that long form text posts that include a lot of detail are very strong and are getting quite a lot of engagement and interaction. It's interesting that Richard just said for detailed text posts, for detailed tech posts, he prefers text initially. And I think that's right. I think a lot of people still do prefer that.
One thing I'd say be careful of is a lot of people use the LinkedIn app on their phone. And if you've got long form text, you've got to make sure you break it down so it's easy on the eye to read. Otherwise, it'll feel like you're reading a novel. So just be conscious of how it comes across when you're writing it, posting it.
I actually did a big rant on IR35 the other day, Bob, which I hit the 3,000 character limit and I hadn't quite finished, which I feel sorry for anyone who had to digest that on mobile. That must have been a bit of a read, even though I did chunk it up as best I could. Carousels and polls, they're still very strong and still go really, really well. Polls are brilliant for engagement and they also help you start conversations. Here is a top tip. When you get responders to polls, it will tell you as the creator who responded to what answer. You can then go and use that information to start conversation. So maybe you could do a pop quiz about a particular topic. And if someone gets it wrong, you can say, hey, that wasn't quite the right answer. Would you like to know why? Or here's a little bit more information about this if you'd like to know more. Or if it's about, say, for example, the market, I went out and spoke to a few people and said, I'm really sorry you're finding the market harder. How can I help? Always be helping. Another thing to really bear in mind and be very careful with this is LinkedIn appears to be punishing obvious ChatGPT content. I did a bit of testing and I lent on ChatGPT for 2 weeks. I didn't let it autopilot my posts, but I wrote my posts with ChatGPT and tweaked them rather than the other way around. My engagement and my reach dropped significantly. So just be very, very careful when using ChatGPT, how you copy it out of the window. Make sure you put it into Notepad first, then copy it out so there's no metadata or anything like that. I believe the algorithm tracks a lot more stuff than we think it does. So just watch out for that, because if it detects that you're using AI tooling, you might land yourself in a bit of hot water. I've also noticed that typical posting windows, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10 till 2, used to be a pretty standard de facto thing. Those are out the window. My content has been performing at very strange times, some of them on Mondays, some of them on Saturdays, and those typical Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday posting windows appear to be so saturated with content now that they haven't become useful, but they're just not as good as they were. Do you have any takes on any of these points, Bob, or anything to add?
The posting time, I think, is just trial and error of what works best with you and your audience. When are your audience online? And it's about trying it and seeing what works best for you. A lot of mine are first thing in the morning, which is when mine normally go out. But it might be different for your target audience. So until you start learning that, you just need a bit of trial and error with different posts, and even reposting, the same post or a very similar post at different times to see how it does. If it fails at 8 o'clock in the morning, try it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
You know what, Bob? That's a great tip. And rather than hit the repost button, actually do repost it.
Start again.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I think that is pretty much it. We said there'd be 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. We've actually finished 5 minutes ahead of schedule. I've probably rushed us along in some of the sections, so apologies if I have done that. Shall we cover some of the questions that we received up first, Bob, and then go on to see if there's anything in the chat to answer? How does that sound?
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Cool. So the argument that LinkedIn is not Facebook has been rumbling on for some time now. Where are we with that? That was asked by Ravi. And sorry, I should have, just before we get into it, just say some of these I've paraphrased or changed the wording slightly so we could fit it onto the slide deck. So where are we with that, Bob?
I think I mentioned it earlier. It's not Facebook, and it shouldn't be Facebook. That's all about taking pictures of your personal time, what you've done on a weekend, food pictures or whatever it might be. But a small element of your posting should be about who you are and building your brand. So 10 to 20% of your posts should always be about you, because it
What
just
about
helps your branding.
what's your view on things like personal success stories? So, like for example, I went on quite a big weight loss journey and posted about that. It was very popular and got me quite a lot of attention. How where do you see that? Does that fit into the category, or it's on the
I think
verge?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't start posting pictures of your food, because that definitely doesn't belong there. But yeah, information about you and your journeys or your successes is what people will want to learn about you and your brand.
It's that behind the scenes thing, isn't it? Like I was saying about that pair of badminton players, people become invested in you as much as your content, and that's when you know that you've built a meaningful relationship with them via your content. So do you have any tips regarding how to appear positive and engaging in a video without coming across as being too cheesy?
Yeah,
Boy.
it's really difficult when you're starting out and say, how do I come across professional and positive? For me, eye contact with the camera, always be looking at a camera, because you're talking to that person, and always have a smile. When I first started doing videos, I started like this, I talked, and I ended like this, and that's what everyone sees, and at the start and the end. Whereas if you start with a smile, talk your way through it with a smile, and end with a smile, that makes a big difference to how you're coming across.
And I think from my side, it's just be yourself. Um, coming across as positive and engaging is hard. I'm not a natural extrovert, right? I'm the most extroverted version of introvert that you can get on the Myers-Briggs scale. And trying to jazz hands my way through a video isn't going to work for me. It's just going to turn people off because it's not me being authentic. So I do things in like a kind of podcast zoomed in style where I'm sat very much like this, but I let my content on the screen and my ideas and what I'm presenting do the talking and try and do it in quite a factual way. I add a lot of value to people in my content through facts and how to's and guides. Other people add value through humor and by making people smile throughout their day and making quips and jokes on things. I know that I'm not as good at that, so I steer away from that. And I steer away from that in my videos, and you absolutely should too. Be your authentic self. You don't have to worry about being cheesy. You just have to worry about reaching the right person that your personality resonates with. You wouldn't make an effort to go and make friends with all 100 people in the pub. You'd make an effort to go and make friends with 10 people that you got on really, really well with and enjoyed being with you for you. Same goes for
Someone
LinkedIn.
someone told me a long time ago when I started in recruitment that you should just be yourself. You know, sometimes you pick up the phone and you always put on this professional voice, and I'm a little bit like this. He said, don't do that. People buy from people, and you just need to be yourself and be natural. Don't put something on. And it's the same when you're doing your LinkedIn posts.
If I promise you a beer, can you do the professional phone voice right now?
I don't drink beer. I stopped drinking
Oh,
18
oh,
months
of
ago.
course you stopped drinking. You stopped drinking. Okay. Hang on. Bag of coffee beans.
Bag of coffee beans.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Bob, and I want to talk to you about this fantastic opportunity.
Oh, Bob.
It's terrible, isn't it? It's just
oh,
terrible.
oh, brilliant. That's so good. That's so good. I do. We all have a phone voice, though. It's unavoidable. Absolutely, 100%. I did several years on the support desk years ago, and I absolutely had a phone voice. Anyway, sorry, I pulled us off of topic. I'm hesitant to post as my content might not be expert level. I also work in multiple fields. When posting on LinkedIn, should I pick one of these topics, differentiate or blend them? That was a question from Leandro.
Mm. I guess it depends on what you're looking to achieve. You need to post. You need to post to. You need to understand who you're posting to, who your target audience is, and post about what's relevant to that and where you want to go. If it's various different areas in that field, it doesn't matter. You know, just start posting, start adding value across the relevant areas of the different directions that you're going in.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, to be honest, this comes down to what do you want to get out of LinkedIn? If you attack it without a plan, like anything, your output is going to be very varied. You're not necessarily going to get as far as if you go into it with a plan of, okay, I want to build my brand awareness. I want to be more attractive to end clients to sell services. I want to be more attractive to hiring managers and get myself hired. What's your goal? What is your why you're doing this? And then sort of ground your content around that. Now, I have some additional context. Leandro is actually a very accomplished competitive dancer and owns a dance school, but also finished a cybersecurity degree, two completely polar different ends of the spectrum. So, Leandro, I would say it just depends what you want. If you want to grow your career in cybersecurity, focus your content on that, but do post about the dancing stuff because it's amazingly visual and people will love to see it on the personal content side of things. If it's the other way around and you kind of want to grow the cybersecurity on the side slower, but you want to focus on selling your dancing services, post more about dancing. When posting on LinkedIn, is there anything that we shouldn't do by Cass Theory?
Yeah, avoid the negativity, like we mentioned earlier. We don't need that on the platform. It doesn't do you any favors. I also think there's so many valuable leads available to you on LinkedIn. So if you put a content post out and you get loads of engagement, loads of likes, loads of comments, follow up on those. If you're not following up, then there's opportunities there that you're missing. Respond to the comments, take them offline, have a little chat with whoever it might be. It's going to be really useful.
Build actual relationships, like meaningful ones, not just likes and engagements. Build meaningful relationships, and that's what's going to get you a long way toward whatever it is that your end goal might be. One thing that I learned the hard way is to not stray too far off of your core topic. So if you are going back to Leandro's example, let's just say that you are trying to build a dance school. When you're commenting on things, don't get involved in politics. You might have a view and everyone's entitled to a view, but if someone that you want to work with sees that and is directly opposed to that view, it might mean they don't want to work with you just based off of one comment that you made once. So sometimes I found myself almost engaging in some of this and then gone, wait, stop, and ask yourself this question. How does this help my brand? How does this help me achieve my goal? Why am I doing this? Who's it serving? And unless you can answer those questions really coherently and concisely and go through with those and identify why it's helping, just walk away from it. Leave it alone. Doesn't need to be done. There's a couple more. I'm not one for the typical LinkedIn motivational guff or clickbait. I've not been in a contract for over a year now, and I feel fraudulent posting expert level stuff. Any suggestions?
This is perfect for someone who's looking to get, you're going to get out of LinkedIn what you put into it. And if you're looking for a job, you're going to get a job by building your brand. So the more you're posting and engaging and networking with people, you're going to have really great value. And I like I said earlier, I hear so many success stories of people who are utilizing their own network. You might not have worked for a year, but you've probably worked for 10, 20 years before that, and you're going to have so much information to pull upon to start posting about. Don't overthink it and start posting about ideas and suggestions to solving people's problems.
Excellent answer, Bob. I can't add anything more to that. Lastly, people recommend using AI to smarten up videos. Is this a good idea, or is keeping it simple and more intimate best in your opinion? I'm going to chime straight in with, I've had some of the best results in my videos when I've taken them just in selfie mode on my iPhone without even a microphone plugged in, right? I believe the algorithm can detect things like when the video was recorded, what it was recorded on, the camera used, whether it was the front facing or rear facing one. And this may be the skeptic in me, but I genuinely believe it makes a difference. I also think that some of those more rustic videos resonate with people. How many times have you found yourself on a video platform, be it LinkedIn or somewhere else, watching people talking about something whilst driving their car? For some reason, that's a thing, and people buy into it. So don't be afraid of just, being yourself, being vulnerable, and being there and using whatever it is that you've got to hand. I think, Bob, you also have a view as well.
Yeah. I think you should use AI to help you. And I remember there was a guy doing a talk at a networking event a few months ago, and he posted a video telling everyone about the talk he was doing, inviting people to the event to try and drum up some more business. And he wasn't naturally very good on video, and you could see he was reading off the text, and his eyes were going like this. So actually, to help smarten it up, we said try using this AI tool, and it stopped. It was surreal. The AI tool stopped his eyes from moving and just looked dead at the camera, and that helped somewhat. So I think until you get confident enough to be able to start talking confidently in front of the camera, you could lean on some tools like that.
Awesome. I've taken the deck down now. So just going through the chat, we have a few minutes left. Let's just see. I'm trying to pick out if there are any. Oh, fantastic that people are networking in the chat. Love that. If there's time, can you explain a little bit more about the LinkedIn algorithms? You hear a lot of different viewpoints. The best thing you can do, short answer, is to follow Richard van der Blom. He is the guy that produces the LinkedIn algorithm report yearly. It's due out for 2025 or last year's report 24. I can't remember which, in April. So in about 6 to 8 weeks time, I think. Do have a look at that. It has all of the data-driven information you need to make decisions on what you want to post. But ultimately, when it comes to posting, just post what you are most comfortable with, and just start doing it, as Bob said. Bob, can you see any questions in here that you can pick out?
So Stephen's just asked me about the AI tool used for. Sorry, Neil has just asked me for the AI tool that was used to help correct the eyes. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll find out and I'll message you what that was, Neil.
Just having a look. Some people are recommending Claude, which is something I'm going to be covering in a video later. We talked about the video intro and long form text. I can't. Oh, I have an expensive hobby that I follow when I have income. Loath to mention it on LinkedIn as it may be perceived wrongly. Okay. I too have an expensive hobby. I do club level motorsport, and that is known for being expensive. Because it has a competitive element to it, and it is, I don't know, there's something about motorsport in particular that seems to appeal to people's inner child, maybe. I seem to get away with it. I haven't once had someone mention it in a derogatory manner. However, I also have a massive appreciation for cars, and I have a weekend car that is reasonably nice, and I posted about it one time, and it turned a load of my audience off. So it's super, super contextual, and the only way you're going to find out is through trial and error, I would say. But so far, my motorsport hobby hasn't seemed to have negatively impacted me when I've posted about it on LinkedIn. In fact, actually, the videos have been quite well engaged with because they're interesting and they're fun and they're different. Bob, do you have anything to add there?
I think you've said some really good points there. Yeah, the only thing I'd say is just it's hard because you want to build that personal brand, but you're worried about how it comes across. I don't know. I think you summarised it a lot better than I did.
Thank you. Oh, private pilot. Oh, Richard, that's so cool. I think that would be amazing to like post some aerial shots or some shots of the cockpit of a plane. People love that, and you don't have to go into like super rich detail about the cost or anything like that. I think that would be some amazing content. People love planes, and they're fascinated by the inside. Oh, knocked my microphone. Sorry. They're fascinated by the inside of them, how they work, as particularly the cockpit. Right. I think you should be brave with that. Is my personal view.
I would too. And it's quite a geeky thing. And if you're in the tech market, then I think that will relate to a lot of people.
What a talking point for an interview as well. When I've been on the interviewer side of the table, the most awkward part of the beginning of an interview is that icebreaker at the start and finding common ground, because I don't like to do the whole, I'm going to sit here and be really authoritative. I want to have just a nice conversation where I tease out how experienced you are. to be able to sit down and say, so come on, Richard, tell me about your plane, because that's amazing. It soothes you, it soothes me. We get off to a good start, and it sets the tone for having a conversation where we can talk about things that aren't just related to the interview and get to know one another a little bit. So yeah, I absolutely think that's something that should be posted about. Right, that is it. We have got to the hour. Thank you all ever so much for joining. Really, really appreciate you making the time and the effort. We will share the deck and the slides by email after this, and the recording will also be made available. Other than that, thank you ever so much for joining again, and we will see you again in the next one.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Catch you all. Bye.